5 NBA championship rings, 2-time All-Star, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Hall of Fame inductee, and the greatest rebounder in history. Titles and achievements abound when defining Rodman as a player. Add a life full of romances, controversies, encounters with Korean dictators, and the wildest antics one can imagine. The result, as you'll see below, is one of the most authentic and controversial personalities the NBA has ever known. Then go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to know about the story of the craziest guy in NBA history. This video will be divided into 3 parts: the player's origins, life in the NBA, and life after the NBA. So let's get started. Origin: a tough life and stealing 50 watches. Rodman never had an easy life. Born in Trenton, he saw his father, Philander Rodman, leave the family at an early age, at 5 years old. This was a common behavior for Philander, who had 29 children with 16 different wives. The lack of a father figure greatly influenced how Rodman related to the world, especially with his mother, Shirley Rodman. He was very attached to her initially, but felt that his sisters were favored in the household. Moreover, Dennis always had to deal with his sisters being far more talented and successful than him in high school basketball, a time when he was still small and not displaying much skill with the ball. Both of them became All-American in basketball, and despite being happy for their achievements, Rodman felt excluded by others, almost as if he didn't matter. This feeling made him never fit in anywhere, resulting in his failure in sports and a constant change of jobs, until he worked as a janitor at Dallas Airport. The worst came when Rodman accepted a challenge from a friend and stole 50 watches from a store in the city. This got him caught, arrested, and released after one night. Though he didn't receive a harsher punishment, this incident was the breaking point in his relationship with his mother. Shirley grew tired of Dennis' immaturity and gave him an ultimatum: either straighten up or hit the streets. It's not hard to guess what he chose, so after this incident, Rodman was kicked out of his home by his mother. After some time, he grew up and stood out in basketball, having good averages for the teams he played for. But family was still a problem he didn't know how to handle well, and he once left his house. He ended up finding a home at a friend's family farm, who he defended during an incident on a hunting trip. According to him, he went from a busy city life to dealing with cows in the countryside. NBA life: lots of rebounds, lots of controversies. In addition to titles and records, Dennis Rodman's NBA career was marked by the wildest antics and controversies the league had ever seen in its history. Drafted by the Detroit Pistons with the 27th pick in the 1986 draft, Dennis was always a force of nature and definitely didn't care about what others thought of his actions. The first proof of this in the NBA was when, in 1987, Rodman said that Larry Bird wasn't that good of a player and only won 3 MVPs because he was white. Quite daring for a player who had just arrived in the league. For his first 4 seasons, he won 2 titles with the Pistons, alongside Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, establishing himself as a defensive force that could guard any type of player. Gradually, the Detroit franchise faced serious problems, which once again messed with Rodman's mind. Alongside that, he struggled with the legal battle for custody of his daughter against his ex-wife, who threatened to take the girl to Europe, preventing her from seeing her father again. All this situation affected him so much that, in a moment of distress, the player sat inside his car with a rifle, contemplating whether or not to end his life. And to make matters worse, his car was parked right in front of the Palace of Auburn Hills, the Pistons' home at the time. The fear of Rodman committing suicide became a huge concern among his friends and family, but no such incident occurred again. Mainly because of the help of Craig Sager, Phil Jackson, and Chuck Daly, men he came to consider as fathers. Phil Jackson, in particular, became even more important in Dennis's life as he would later become his coach during his 3rd, 4th, and 5th championship titles. After so many years on Detroit's side during the heated series and fights between the Pistons and the Bulls, Rodman went to Chicago to play alongside Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. During this period, Dennis Rodman had a totally outrageous relationship with Madonna, even traveling from Las Vegas to New York just to sleep with her. As he himself tells it, this is how far it went. I was in Las Vegas at a gambling table when I received a frantic phone call. It was like one of those, someone died, help, calls straight from New York. I picked up the phone, and Madonna was like, I'm ovulating, I'm ovulating, I'm ovulating. As if one relationship with Madonna wasn't enough, Rodman even married Carmen Electra, but later claimed he was drunk at the time and called off the marriage. Life after the NBA: one of the greatest players in history. Despite the off-court controversies and all the on-court fights, trash talk, and aggression, Rodman retired as one of the greatest players in history. He led the league in rebounds for 7 seasons, a feat even NBA legends like Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell couldn't achieve, despite being contemporaries of some of the greatest centers to have ever played basketball. Outside the NBA, Rodman didn't shy away from controversies either, especially due to his friendship with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. He also never hid his support for President Donald Trump, always emphasizing that the United States desperately needed a businessman like him in power. Could Dennis Rodman be the future peacemaker between the United States and North Korea? However, what becomes evident from this study of Dennis Rodman is how much his family relationships affected the way he saw and dealt with the world. Despite always being seen by the media and fans as the strange and maniacal figure of the NBA, the Worm showed us, especially through his Hall of Fame speech, that behind all the tattoos, piercings, hair dye, and unimaginable stories, there is a man desperately trying to find himself. Behind the figure of Dennis Rodman lies a father, son, friend, husband, and teammate with strong emotions and regrets about his life, but who still wishes to become something better beyond the caricature the world insists on exalting. In the end, Rodman turned his career into a great tool to show himself to the world and release all the whirlwind of emotions he was. And as crazy and unpredictable as the journey here has been, basketball couldn't be more grateful for the presence of Detroit's bad boy on its courts.